Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is? Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. It's on to current events. Alright guys, you all know the other day, Athlean-X, Jeff Cavalier, made a video basically telling people that no one should ever do the above the knee rack pull. Now, we know a lot of YouTubers have promoted this, and I'm not going to necessarily get into all of them because a lot of the other people don't have any form of academic background. They're not necessarily educated or even well-read on lifting. Right? They're generally gimmicky people who occasionally get some stuff right, but it's about gimmicky stuff. These aren't people who really should be considered knowledgeable or anything else. So it's not really a big deal. Not a big deal that they did it. But we had a couple of individuals who within the last year or two have promoted the above the knee rack pull. And that is Jeff Nippard and a guy named James, I don't know his last name, over at Shredded Sports Science, who have defended and promoted this exercise. Now the problem with that is that these are both individuals who, to my knowledge, claim to have some form of degree in exercise science, at least an undergrad degree in an exercise science related field. Well, that's a problem when people who are experts actually promote something like this, and particularly when Jeff has broken down very, very clearly why this is a dangerous exercise and why no one should do it, that it's not safe. Now, I'm going to kind of address each of these guys separately with it. Now, with James, again, I want to formally invite him to renounce his stance on it. And the reason I say that is that he seems to be a very, very, very big defender of Jeff. Right, he seems to legitimately consider Jeff to be a foremost expert. From what I can tell, he seems to really, really respect Jeff and his opinion and goes after anyone who disagrees with Jeff. Well, Jeff has basically disagreed with him because a while back he addressed me personally, and again, kind of came at me in a very aggressive way about it. And this time I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to insult people. I'm just going to say, James, look, you sided with Alpha Destiny against me on this topic, and you claimed that the above the knee rack pull was an amazing exercise, that it was a great exercise, it was a phenomenal hypertrophy exercise against me. Like, you actually argued against me and took his side of the situation, and you very, very vehemently defended the above the knee rack pull. You did. You made a whole video. And to my knowledge, you've never recanted that position. Well, you're someone who claims to be an expert in the field of exercise science. You claim to have a formal education in the field. Yet this exercise has been shown by pretty much the leading physical therapist anywhere on YouTube to be such a dangerous exercise that no one should ever perform it. So in this case, I would say it's probably a good idea for you as an expert who people might look up to, who they might respect, for you to go ahead and acknowledge that perhaps you were wrong on this one. I have to do it. Other people have to do it. We're all wrong sometimes. And sometimes we just have to be a bigger man, set our ego to the side and say, you know what, I was wrong. I mean, I've done it. I've done it a few different times. I've had to, because we're all wrong. Everyone's wrong sometimes. But if you're going to claim to be an academic or a defender of truth, you know, when something like this is looked at, it's time to step up and say, you know what, I let my personal bias get in the way. In this case, you let your personal bias against me. You let your personal bias against me. And I believe that was largely due because you like to defend Jeff, right? And I believe that was the situation. You let your emotions get in the way, and you made a really bad call that I even said back then was a bad call. And now even Jeff has come out and said, hey, this exercise is dangerous. Don't ever do it, guys. But you promoted it. So maybe you should come forward and say, you know what, maybe in this case, you let emotions get the better of you and you were wrong, and then move forward. And I'll respect you more for that. And I think a lot of people would too. I think generally, other than a few really bizarre people with their own hang-ups who can't ever envision anyone ever changing their mind, I think most people respect you when you're honest and step up and say, I was wrong, let me change my stance. Right? Because that's the admirable thing to do. That's the admirable thing to do, especially if we're going to be discussing topics like exercise science. And in fact, I would actually like to offer James to start training and lifting. I know that he's got an academic background and that's what he promotes, but he also, I would really like to see him get some practical experience in the gym also, And while I'm at it, James, I would like to invite you to go over to my Ice Cream Fitness 2.0 playlist and run my novice program there. It's a basic exercise program for beginners to help them build up some size and strength. I have a full playlist with detailed instructions on all the exercises. I've got full details on how to progress on it. I think it would be really valuable to you, and I would like to invite you to run that program also. I think it would help you tremendously. That way, again, you start getting some actual practical experience to go with the academic, and I think you could really bring what you're doing up to another level. I think it could only help you. So I would like to invite you to try that out. You might like it. Start getting under a barbell. Over to Jeff Nippard. We kind of run into the same thing. You know, he promoted it, got again with Alpha Destiny, came in and promoted and performed this lift with him, worked out with it, trained on it earlier this year, right? But we have the case of where even someone who Jeff works with a bit, does seminars with, someone he very clearly respects, right? Someone he very clearly respects, Dr. Mike Israel, has gone on to say that it's one of the worst exercises ever, right? And I threw snippets up of some sound clips of him discussing it, basically saying in terms of, because again, Mike is really big on things like maximum recoverable volume, like training with the highest volumes and the highest stimulus that we can recover from, right? Pushing the limits of training volume to induce maximum hypertrophy. That's kind of a big part of Mike's outreach. And for Mike, it's trying to find what those limits are and find ways for us to train more and get more training volume while still recovering from it. And he pointed out that from that perspective, from a hypertrophy perspective, the above the knee rack pull actually has really terrible training response, and it's really high in the fatigue that it generates. So in terms of the training stimulus versus fatigue ratio, it is quite possibly one of the worst exercises ever invented. He also pointed out that it's dangerous, it's not safe, and that he just couldn't endorse it, that he felt it was ridiculous, and on top of being terrible for hypertrophy, it doesn't even carry over to other lifts well. It doesn't even carry over to any form of deadlift effectively. And he kind of just gave it to the big X, like, no, we're not doing this, bad exercise, right? Jeff went and did it anyways, promoted it anyways, and now again, someone like Jeff Cavalier, Athlean-X, has come out and said, no one should ever perform this exercise. Right? I mean, these are foremost experts. I mean, Dr. Mike, in terms of, we think in terms of an expert on muscle hypertrophy, pretty high up there. Jeff Cavalier talking about physical therapy. Extremely famous, extremely well-educated physical therapist, physical sports therapist. Both of these guys have given this exercise a red light. Useless for hypertrophy, extremely dangerous, really stupid exercise. Jeff being an educated man, again, a seeker of truth, again, in this case, Jeff Nippard, I would like to invite him to relook at the fact that he's promoted this exercise, done it himself, endorsed it, and maybe retract his stance on it. Right, and just kind of come forward and say, you know what, guys, I apologize for endorsing a dangerous, useless exercise. I'll do better next time. And you know what? I think most of us would respect Jeff a lot more for that. We would look at him and say, you know what, man? You were the bigger man. You stepped up and admitted, hey, maybe this wasn't a good idea. I apologize for it. And you move on. And you know what? You get a lot of respect for that. I'd respect it. I think a lot of other people would too. And I think that's the way to go. Here, guys. So I would appreciate it if, again, and I'm very politely stating this, that if both of these individuals would come forward and state that this exercise is a terrible exercise and they didn't mean to promote it, and hopefully no one's been injured and minimal equipment has been destroyed in people's gyms as a result of them maybe encouraging some noobs to do it. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.